the Ministry of Education, and by extension, Youth, Sports, and Culture. The results of our findings are not just statistics. They are the physical, mental, emotional, and social realities that our children and adolescents face on a daily basis in our country. While some of the data raised may concern many at the sound of my voice, it also presents us with a clear opportunity to better understand the challenges that our youth currently face, allowing us to respond in a meaningful, coordinated way that will bring positive results. This morning, I will share just a few of the key findings of the 2025 Global School Health Report. Then Dr. Pearl McMillan, our Chief Medical Officer, will come and add. Then our representative from the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Busan, will come. And finally, we will have Dr. Moxie, who will expand even more. And then we will make this report available to everyone present on completion, and it would be circulated via the internet to the general population. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, here are some of what we found. We found that 28% of students reported persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. 1 in 4 teens, or 25%, have seriously contemplated suicide, and 1 in 5 have attempted suicide. These numbers are very sobering and should not sit well with any of us present or anyone who is listening to our presentation. When it comes to diet and physical activity, students are consuming excessive amount of sugary beverages and ultra-processed foods with limited dietary intake of fruits and vegetables. Only 10% of our teens eat a daily recommended amount of vegetables, and 6% eat adequate fruits. Only 17% of our teens are getting the adequate physical activity necessary to remain healthy, and many are exposed to school health violence, bullying. Risky behaviors also continue to affect our students. Our children are not only feeling unsafe in schools, but they are also feeling unsafe in other settings, including the home. These trends did not emerge overnight. They are a result of multiple factors, some systemic, some brought on by society, and some that are deeply personal to those affected. This data does not tell us to panic. It tells us as a nation to wake up, pay attention to the evidence-based information and signs that exist as a result of exposure, and then, yes, make plans to collectively act toward better outcomes for our young people. This report gives us the evidence we need to act with clarity and courage. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has already begun discussions with our partners at the Ministry of Education, Pan American Health Organization, Social Services, Youth, Sports, and Culture, as well as civil society, to develop a practical, measurable, multi-sectorial, multi-ministerial response. We must build on many programs that currently exist and focus on key priorities discovered in this report. Firstly, we need to look into a national adolescents health policy focused on early identification, intervention, and community-based support services. Secondly, the expansion of school-based health services, ensuring access to more mental health counseling, nutritional guidance, reproductive health information, and substance abuse support. We must also work on a national nutrition and physical activity campaign supported by policy, tailored to the reality and interests of today's youth. Fourthly, a national digital health platform where adolescents can access resources in a confidential setting and support not only at certain times of the day, but 24/7. Lastly, we must work together as a nation and as families to increase parental engagement, public awareness, because we need every parent, every adult, every mentor, every church leader to be a part of the solution. Everyone has a role to play in building supportive environmental and social networks where our children and teens can thrive. We know that the government cannot make this decision on its own, and we cannot be the only one involved. It has already made the commitment to support and expand many existing programs in collaboration with parents, teachers, young people, health professionals, coaches, young leaders, policymakers, public and private sector partners, and key stakeholders throughout the country. With the current findings in this 2025 report and what is currently unfolding across this country, where we are learning more about the effects of our children's social well-being, we've learned about suicides and attempted suicides, and we must act with a sense of urgency. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, the youth of our nation are not problems to be solved. They are potentials to be unlocked. They are brilliant. Our young people are resilient. They are creative, and they are very capable to do great things in the country and abroad. With the right support system in place, we are certain they will grow. They will shine, and they will bring benefits to the generation ahead of us and the generations that even go beyond. The findings of this 2025 Global School Health Report give us the evidence-based data that we need that will help us to understand what many of our young people are experiencing on a daily basis. It is now upon all of us to use this information to drive effective change, ensuring that our young people have the resources and support systems that they need to, first of all, feel safe. Secondly, to feel valued and empowered to grow into confident, caring, contributing adults in our society. I want to thank our Prime Minister and our Cabinet colleagues for their support. I also want to thank my team at the Ministry of Health, particularly Dr. Moxey, who has been leading this charge. And I want to thank our international partners like the Pan American Health Organization, other ministerial groups, particularly the Ministry of Education, Science, and Technology. And finally, the funding and manpower resources that must follow to implement many of the recommended findings so that we can address the root cause. I say it again. We must act now. I know the government is already on alert mode, and resources are currently being channeled through my ministry, and I'm certain they'll be channeled through other ministries to address the crucial findings of this report that clearly articulates and demonstrates that our young people have issues and we must act now. I thank you for coming out today, and now I welcome Dr. Pearl McMillan to the podium for additional insight to the finding of this important report, and then she'll be followed by Dr. Busan, our representative from the Pan American Health Organization, and finally, Dr. Moxey, who will go into greater details and finalize this press conference. I thank you.
Good morning, members of the media and fellow Bahamians. Today, the Ministry of Health and Wellness presents the findings of the Bahamas 2025 Global School Health Survey, GSHS, a comprehensive national snapshot of health, risks, and lived experiences of Bahamian adolescents aged 13 to 18. This survey, used in nearly 100 countries, is a globally recognized and standardized tool. It aims to assess key risk and protective factors among teens across 6 vital areas, including diet and nutrition, physical activity, substance abuse, sexual health, violence and injury, mental health, and parental and community support. The GSHS, therefore, is a very instrumental tool in helping us to understand the health and well-being of teens and youth in the country. A little more about the survey. In our survey, we had a total of 2,213 students aged 13 to 18. And this was across 35 schools and 8 islands that participated in this last cycle of the survey. The islands were Abaco, Andros, Berry Island, Eleuthera, Exuma, Inagua, Grand Bahama, and New Providence. An 80% response rate was achieved, ensuring that the findings are not only reflective of those who participated in the survey, but also generalizable to the broader population of 13 to 18-year-olds in our country. Today's milestone represents the culmination of a 2-year journey, carefully navigated through 4 strategic phases, fueled by unwavering commitment of the coordinating committee, a dynamic team of multi-sector partners, including Ministry of Education, whose contributions have been especially invaluable. I pause here to give my personal thanks to this team who really carried their work, I would say, with great fervor, and they took us to the finish line. Additionally, the achievements would not have been possible without the generous support and technical guidance of the Pan American Health Organization, or PAHO, who we have here with us today. They have partnered with us significantly and enriched the process. To all our collaborators, stakeholders, and supporters, thank you for walking this path with us and helping make this survey cycle a success. And I refer to the cycle because this is not the first time that we would have carried out the survey. The Ministry of Health and Wellness firmly believes that the value add of the GSHS is its translation of the complex realities that our teens and youth face into clear, quantifiable data to inform population policies and interventions. It has qualified never-before data and insights on, for example, sexual exploitation and cyberbullying among teens, as well as dimensions of parental and other support. And the full report provides more than just prevalence and frequencies. It also explores statistical associations. Finally, as I wrap up, I am reminded that our children and youth are our future, and the findings shared today should be treated as priority and raise concern for every father, mother, teacher, pastor, community leader, law enforcement officer, and beyond, with commitment to support the changes required. Thank you. And now I invite Dr. Eldona Busson, who is our PAHO WHO representative for our country.
Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, members of the media. It's a real pleasure for me to be here today on behalf of the Pan American Health Organization and the World Health Organization, as we are, with the Bahamas, marking the official release of their Global School Health Survey. As PAHO WHO, we were really proud to support this very important initiative, which is one that provides countries across our region of the Americas with the tools, the data, and the information that is necessary to understand the health and the well-being of adolescents and school-aged youth. Why is this survey important? Why does it matter? Well, young people are at the heart of our region's future, yet they face growing threats to their health. Rising rates of obesity, exposure to violence, mental health challenges, and risky behaviors that can lead to lifelong consequences. This Global School Health Survey allows us to listen to their voices. It provides nationally representative data across key health areas, including physical activity, nutrition, substance abuse, mental health, and others that you heard about. The survey provides key information to inform and shape evidence-based policies and school health programs, and it ensures that the interventions are timely, are effective, and are youth-centered. PAHO WHO commends the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Education, for their leadership and their commitment to youth health. Conducting this survey, especially in a post-pandemic time, was no small feat. It really reflects the country's strong resolve to place the health and well-being of young people high on the national agenda. We also recognize the many schools, the teachers, and the students who participated in the survey. Their voices are shaping national policy and most likely inspiring regional action as well. The survey in the Bahamas is actually part of a wider regional effort across the Americas, because countries are implementing these global school health surveys to track progress, identify gaps, and also share solutions. At PAHO WHO, we remain committed to supporting countries like the Bahamas in strengthening school health systems and in advancing adolescent health. So, as we reflect on the findings of this survey that you heard and more to come, let it not be the end, but the beginning of coordinated, multi-sectoral action, like investing in health-promoting schools, in scaling up access to mental health services for youth, and for ensuring that our children are safe, nourished, active, and empowered to reach their full potential. So in closing, I extend sincere congratulations to all the partners involved in this important effort. The Global School Health Survey is much more than just a report. It's really a mirror held up to our society, reflecting how well we're caring for our next generation. So let us use it wisely. Let's work together to build a healthier, more hopeful future for all young people in the Bahamas and throughout the Americas. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be with you today on this National Wellness Day, where we will discuss the wellness of our teens. The Bahamas has conducted a population-based assessment of its teens 3 times, in 1998, in 2013, and most recently in 2023, giving a longitudinal view into the shifting health and social realities of young people. And while there are few positive notes, much of the data is nothing short of alarming, demonstrating that the health and well-being of teens in the Bahamas has worsened dramatically. These findings are not just numbers, and you heard Minister say that. They reflect the experiences of thousands of teens from Managua in the south to Grand Bahama in the north. Over the past 25 years, 8 of the 54, or 15% of the measured indicators, have moved in the right direction. For example, more teens are food secure, and more are delaying sexual debut. 6 of the 54, or 6% of the indicators, have not changed. And 36 of the 54, or 67% of these indicators, have moved in the wrong direction. In terms of physical health, the rate of overweight teens in the Bahamas has increased by over 135% since 1998, meaning every 2 and 5 Bahamian teens are now living above a healthy weight. Obesity has tripled, jumping from 7% to 21%. These are major shifts in the health profile of a generation. Compounding this, only 6% of teens meet the daily recommended amount of fruit, and just 10% meet the recommendation for vegetables, down from 14% and 31% respectively. At the same time, teens who daily or almost daily consume sugary beverages has surged. In fact, it has nearly tripled from 28% to 81%. In stark contrast, fewer than 1 in 5 teens drink enough water. Physical activity among teens is also declining. In 1998, 36% of teens got sufficient physical activity. Today, this has dropped by more than half to just 15%. Meanwhile, sedentary behavior, sitting, reclining, lying down, has soared from 55% to 72%. Sleep is an important component of both physical and mental health. Yet, significant sleep deficit is emerging among teens, with nearly 30% getting less than 5 hours of sleep per night, far below what is required for healthy brain development, emotional regulation, and optimal academic performance. Teen sex health shows some encouraging signs. More teens are choosing to delay sexual activity. Fewer are initiating sex at the age of 13 or younger. And the proportion of teens reporting multiple sexual partners has significantly declined from 55% in 1998 to 15% in 2023. However, nearly 50% of sexually active teens reported having unprotected sex, indicating that condom knowledge is not translating into condom use. This gap may be contributing to the recent increase in sexually transmitted infections as reported by the National HIV/AIDS Program earlier this year. Boys are 4 times more likely than girls to report having multiple sexual partners, 22.3% compared to 6.3%. Turning to substance use. Overall, there is a deeply concerning rise in substance use among teens in the Bahamas. E-cigarette use, measured for the first time in this age group, is emerging as a major concern and stands at 17%, showing a clear shift from traditional cigarettes. These figures place the Bahamas on par with teen cigarette usage rates in the US, Canada, and the UK. Alcohol use is at crisis levels. The proportion of teens who have ever consumed alcohol, excluding for religious use, has more than doubled, from 32% to 74%. Currently, 34% of teens are active drinkers, with binge drinking rising sixfold from 2% to 12%, and drunkenness climbing from 21% to 27%. 3 out of every 4 teens who purchased alcohol were never asked to show an ID, despite the legal drinking age of 18 years. More than half of Bahamian teens, that is 54.6%, used illegal drugs by the age of 13. This is before the completion of junior high school. Lifetime cocaine use in particular has surged tenfold, from 1% in 1998 to 12% in 2023. This represents one of the sharpest increases across any indicator in this report. Lifetime marijuana use also has more than doubled, from 8% to 17%. And the use of synthetic drugs like uppers and ecstasy has crept from 4% to 5%. 14% of teens live in homes where drugs are used. Even more troubling, 13% of teens who admit to using drugs and alcohol reported attending school under the influence. Turning to violence and injury. Serious injury among teens has seen a 5-fold jump, meaning half of our teen population has experienced a serious injury within a single year. Weapon carrying increased from 13% to 18%. Gang involvement now stands at 8%. Bullying is up, both on and off school grounds, increasing from 24% to 38%. With the rise of digital media, 16% of our teens reported being harassed online. Equally troubling is what's happening behind closed doors. Exposure to violence in the home, whether witnessing it or experiencing it, has increased from 25% in 1998 to 33% in 2023. For the first time, the survey measured sexual exploitation and coercion. The results are disturbing. 22% of teens have been sexually exploited, and early sexual debut was significantly associated with sexual exploitation. 10% have been forced to have sex. Boys are more likely to be sexually exploited, while girls were more likely to be forced into having sex. Both differences were statistically significant. Turning to mental health. Perhaps the most sobering part of this report lies in the mental health data. Every measured mental health indicator has worsened, many at alarming rates. Teens who report feeling hopeless or depressed, most times or always, rose from 20% to 28%. Feelings of loneliness more than doubled, jumping from 11% to 26%. Sleep disturbances due to anxiety increased from 14% to 20%. But it is the data on self-harm and suicide that should stop all of us in our tracks. The percentage of teens engaging in self-harm without the intent to kill themselves has nearly tripled from 10% to 27%. Teens who seriously considered suicide jumped from 7% to 25%. Teens who have made a suicide plan increased from 16% to 23%. Those who have attempted suicide rose from 12% to 20%. Again, these are not just numbers. They represent lives at risk, silent struggles, and calls for help that we cannot afford to ignore. Turning to the role of parents and other support systems, the encouraging takeaway here is that most teens, 65%, reported their parents and guardians did not ridicule, demean, harshly criticize, or belittle them. While 60% of teens reported living with either their biological father or a father figure, emotional presence, communication, consistent parental engagement and supervision appeared to be in decline. The percentage of teens who say their parents rarely or never check their schoolwork, a marker of academic inattention, has more than doubled, rising from 21% to 50%. Those who felt understood by their parents dropped from 37% to 28%. Teens who felt their parents listened and were attentive dropped from 51% to 40%. 36% say their parents rarely or never knew what they really did in their free time. What this tells us is that even when parents and caregivers are physically present in the home, many teens are still experiencing emotional disconnection, weak communication, and low levels of guidance. Fewer than 1 in 4 teens, or 23.4%, reported having someone they could confide in about difficult problems or matters that worried them. Nearly 6 in 10 teens, or 58.4%, said that they were rarely or never able to talk to anyone about life's challenges. Overall, the data revealed some gender vulnerabilities. Boys are more likely to get in fights and gangs, underperform academically, use drugs, and experience sexual exploitation and emotional abuse. Girls were more likely to have poor diets, misuse alcohol, experience domestic violence, bullying, poor mental health, and being forced to have sex. What did the survey tell us about adverse childhood experiences, abbreviated ACEs? Research consistently shows that the greater number of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, the higher the risk of negative outcomes later in life. According to the 2022 census, there are 42,357 teens in the Bahamas between the ages of 13 and 18 years. While the Global School Health Survey is not a formal tool to measure ACEs, it did explore 5 of them and revealed that 54% of teens, nearly 23,000, reported experiencing at least 2 ACEs, and 14% of teens, approximately 6,000, reported 3 or more ACEs. As a whole, the findings present a stark and sobering truth. Our teens are facing more complex, more dangerous, and more emotionally burdensome realities than any generation before them. The reality is that far too many of our young people are struggling in silence, feeling unseen, unheard, and unsupported, and we must listen. While the numbers are deeply troubling, they are equally instructive, giving the clearest signal yet that urgent, cross-sector action is needed now. As you would have heard, a multi-sector committee has already been convened to address immediate and short-term actions to improve the health and well-being of our nation's teens. The full report, inclusive of medium and long-term actions, is available online. Each of us, regardless of sector or role, has a part to play in shaping a healthier future for our youth. If you are a parent, use this data to open honest, judgment-free conversations with your children. Know the warning signs. Prioritize presence, not just proximity. If you are an educator, recognize that each student carries a story, and some carry silent burdens and unseen scars. Use the findings to advocate for safer, more inclusive school environments. Health workers may use this evidence to strengthen and expand adolescent-focused services, from nutrition and mental health to substance use prevention and sexual health education. If you are a youth leader, social worker, or counselor, use the data to ensure that the pain of teens you encounter is not dismissed and their potential is not overlooked. If you are a pastor or faith leader, use these insights to mobilize your congregation to restore family bonds, support struggling parents, and build safe spaces for youth to grow. If you are a policymaker, use this to inform targeted investments, evidence-based legislation, and cross-sector strategies for youth. If you are a researcher, let this report be your springboard. Investigate the root causes to help us move from insight to impact. If you are a member of the media, use this report to elevate the conversation around youth health and well-being. Go beyond the headlines to raise awareness, challenge stigma, and hold systems accountable. If you are a teen, use these findings to better understand your health, to speak about what you need, to support your peers, and to seek help when things feel overwhelming. The fourth wave of the Global School Health Survey in the Bahamas is scheduled for 2028-2029. This gives us a clear window to change the trajectory to better health and well-being for teens in this nation. In conclusion, the findings of the Global School Health Survey offer our collective response and not just for review. Adolescence has been characterized as an intensely emotional period during which teens struggle with defining their identity as they move from childhood to adulthood. It is a time of exploration and pushing the boundaries for solidifying values, behaviors, and habits. The evidence is clear. Habits formed during adolescence often carry into adulthood. Left unaddressed, negative habits and scars lay the foundation for chronic disease, poor mental health, and diminished quality of life. Thank you, and the full report can be accessed by scanning the QR code on the screen.
Well, thank you very much to our presenters, Dr. Darrell McMillan and Moxie, as well as our representatives from PAHO. Thank you very much. We'll now like to open the floor for questions from members of the press.
I'm not sure who's going to respond, but did we, I guess in conducting the surveys, I know you spoke a lot to what the findings tell you, but did we seek to find out, I guess, what caused some of the more like depression, suicide and stuff in the teens? For example, I know Abaco and Grand Bahama were part of the islands. Those islands experienced Dorian, where people are still reeling from having to go through that trauma, as well as going through COVID-19, you know, that those were some traumatic times for people as well. So did we find out what may have led to some of this? I know she also, Dr. Moxie, spoke to parenting issues as well.
Yes, that's an excellent question, and it's multifaceted. When you made reference to the psychological evaluation of teens who experience traumatic events like Hurricane Dorian, there's evidence to point that that has caused some of the deterioration in some aspects of their mental health. And our organization, with the mental health unit, has partnered with a private psychological group, Psychological Association, who is doing work in these areas affected and assessing the impact and offering therapy to our kids who find themselves still traumatized of what they experienced from Hurricane Dorian and also from some aspects of the pandemic. We have had reported cases of children in our schools that when there is really intense weather patterns like rain and thunderstorms, they actually cry out and hide under their desks. So we know that there's an impact to these devastating climate events that has taken place in the country. Dr. Moxie, you would like to add to that?
So again, very good question, and I'd like to echo what Minister Darville would have said. The contributors around mental health is very complex. And whereas our survey looked at, we did some secondary analysis on the data, and we found that there were some associations with mental health and, for example, alcohol use, mental health and bullying, mental health and self-harm. We appreciate and we recognize that there needs to be further explorations, further research done to really understand what are the root causes as to why we're seeing such an alarming increase in terms of the mental health of our teens. Again, we recognize that there are multiple contributing factors that could be at play. We did not obviously examine all of those factors, but it is, I think, an urgent research need for us to delve deeper.
You also spoke to alcoholism with the teens. Does this mean that maybe there needs, or does the ministry feel that there needs to be greater, I guess, policing on liquor stores, bars, especially those in certain areas or on some of the family islands, in terms of individuals selling alcohol to teens, or even individuals buying it and then giving it to teenagers to try to curb that trend as well?
So again, the good thing is we do have legislation. That's one component of it. We just need to enforce the legislation we have on the books. The second thing is, during the budget debate, you would have heard the Minister Keith Bell talk about findings that Urban Renewal would have recently done in terms of mapping liquor stores in communities. And one of the recommendations in the Global School Health Report talks about us really taking a deeper dive in regulating how many liquor stores are per square foot of any particular community. Again, that is a recommendation. We have other recommendations in the report as it relates to alcohol use amongst teens, but I think one of the things that we are seeking to get to is where we actually have a national alcohol policy to really bring all of these diverse pieces together so that, again, we can set our youth up for the best chance of success.
Just a question. I know this is regarding the sexual health. Most people feel shocked because people feel like teens are hypersexualized. You're seeing the opposite of delaying sexual activities and such. I don't know if you can say this, but did this survey look at what's the reason behind it? Why Bahamian children are, I guess, laying off of being exposed or engaging in those activities as early in life?
So, like you, when we saw the numbers, we too were in disbelief. We ran the numbers a couple of times, and we were like, no, this cannot be right, for the same reason. But again, even after running the numbers, they were what they were. Again, this will be an area for additional investigation. We know when we asked teens why they were the top two reasons for why those who were sexually active were sexually active. They indicated that it was because they were feeling peer pressure. So again, we don't know whether that is statistically associated or not, but further research is required. And again, this is a call for all researchers out there. I think this is again, as I mentioned in my remarks, this is a springboard for a lot further research in the area of youth and teen development and health and well-being.
And just for clarity, I know there have been some concerns about alarming numbers in how these teens are being engaged sexually, right? But could health officials confirm if the uptick in STIs was noticed among those teens who are based on the numbers?
So for the first time in this report, actually, we asked the question, have you ever been diagnosed with a sexually transmitted infection? That was the first time we asked this question. And the percentage was 8% in this survey. But we do see, though, from the report given by the National HIV/AIDS Program that STIs are on the rise. So I think we need to use the information we have to see how it supports that trend that they're seeing, and I think our data is supportive of that because we're seeing more teens, engaging in unprotected sex. So even though fewer teens on the whole are sexually active, those that are sexually active are engaging in risky sexual behaviors.
So no confirmation that STIs is on the rise
No, I have no confirmation of that.
The question you asked, sir, I think is a very interesting question because very soon we will be doing a press conference on the HIV report and what we're seeing in the country. A couple months ago, we did alert the country on the rise of sexually transmitted diseases in the country and the fact that individuals who are sexually active, particularly young individuals, are active, unprotected sex. This is of great concern, and very shortly we will be doing an additional campaign to educate young people of the importance of sexual practices and the use of condoms if you're going to be sexually active is something that is absolutely essential, because with the rise in sexually transmitted infections, particularly chlamydia, the global trends is when you begin to see this rise, behind it, there's a possibility of rise of HIV in the country because of this practice where seems to be of great concern to us, unprotected sex in the country. And for those who are listening to us, it's important that if you're going to be sexually active, that you practice safe sex. The best form is abstinence, but if you're going to be sexually active, you need to ensure that you protect yourself. Because in the report, you will see that the possibility of lifelong diseases from youth until into adulthood is a strong possibility. And so shortly, Dr. Forbes and myself will be doing a press conference with the HIV report and what are some of the new things that would be implemented to reduce the incidence in the country and also the country's drive to get us off of the World Health Organization and Power Health Organization for vertical transmission of HIV. And so a lot of work is being going on that so that internationally we would achieve this new status. We're still working on it, it's work in progress, and we will speak a little bit more about that in short order.
Does this statistic with the unprotected sex also make a call to revamp sexual education in the high schools? Because I know it is covered, but I know that we also live in a very conservative Christian society. So parents may be a little anxious to even expose the conversation with their children at the school level.
Well, I believe we need to think outside of the box as parents and guardians. The reality is children are making many decisions on their own. We try to guide our kids, but it's also important for the government to establish effective policies that can change sexual behavior. And so we are working diligently to ensure that that happens. And what the report has indicated is so alarming that we need to get ahead of it. I don't know if you want to say a little bit more to it, Dr. Moxie, but ultimately we need to change behavioral patterns in the country, particularly in our young people, to ensure that they are protected if they are going to be sexually active.
And at the onset of your presentation, you mentioned that there seems to be, I hope I'm quoting it correctly, an uptick in suicide and even attempts among young persons, I believe from age 13 to 18.
What I said is over the last few months, or possibly the last year, you see it in the media. We are aware of the fact that many people, both young and old, are engaging in the possibility of attempted suicide, and we have seen an uptake of suicide cases reported in the media. It's reflective of what's going on in the report. And it's a very troubling trend that we are noticing, and we intend through the mental health team to address it at our school population and dive deeper into some of the complex causes why we find our children who are very sad. It could be associated with the home environment. It could be associated with bullying. All of these things could lead to our children making these decisions. And we need to address it and come with real solutions to reduce the instances of attempted suicides and suicide.
This is a question for, I don't know if you can answer, but I wanted to know for mental health, were you asking the participants have you been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, and what have been those mental health disorders they have admitted to?
No, the specific mental health diagnoses was not explored in the survey. It was more about looking at the symptoms that are suggestive of a mental health disease. So, for example, asking about depression, asking about loneliness, asking about have you attempted suicide? So those types of questions. I think one thing that we need to draw here, point out here, is that in order for the survey to be efficient within the time frame, you can only have so many questions, right? And to start getting into mental health diagnoses, you have to ask a lot of questions, a lot of sub-questions in order to get to a specific diagnosis. So we did not ask that specific questions, but we did ask those symptomatic questions that most psychologists, most mental health practitioners would ask when you go for a counseling session.
Here's my last question with the surveys. Were these links that was given anonymously, were they done through phone, face-to-face? What was the various methods?
Excellent question. So our methodology for the 7 islands that we executed the survey on, these were face-to-face. So we engaged, again, very heavily with Ministry of Education. We would have identified ahead of time which schools, which classes within the schools, and then each class has a 8B, 8C, 8D. So we would have identified which specific classroom in each class is to be enumerated for the survey, and they were done face-to-face. So our team went to the islands to conduct the surveys face-to-face.
I just have a question for Dr. Darwell.
Yeah,
We're going to switch gears a little bit, sorry. It's just regarding, just wanted to get a follow-up with the NHI payments to the providers. I'm wondering, can you give an update on that? How has that competition been with the providers in the scheme?
I'll speak to you after we wrap this up on the side,
Okay.
because I don't want
Yeah, no, that's fine.
it to be interconnected in any way.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much to all of our presenters. Just want to congratulate and acknowledge the team on the work that they have done to produce these findings. Very important to do that, of course, to assess the information and most importantly, to act on it. And thank you very much for that information. And we, of course, will look forward to the follow-ups as well and results. With that, we bring our press briefing to a close. Thank you so much, everyone, for your attention, and have a good afternoon.